Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have news out of the state of Michigan where another Democrat has entered the race for U.S. Senate. Today it is Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens. She has joined the growingly crowded 2026 Democratic primary. She launched her run for Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat on Tuesday with a video focused on the economic crisis caused by President Donald Trump's volatile tariff policies, walking through a lot full of pickup trucks and SUVs to make the case that she's the candidate who will protect the state's critical auto industry. She says, quote, his chaos and reckless tariffs are putting tens of thousands of Michigan jobs at risk. We absolutely need to put an end to the chaos agenda. Stevens said in an interview with the AP. Stevens, a Democrat, is the fourth well-known candidate to join what is quickly becoming one of the nation's most watched Senate races, with Republicans' 53-47 majority in the U.S. Senate at stake in a battleground state that Trump narrowly won back in November. Quickly a top possible contender after Democratic Senator Gary Peters chose to not seek re-election, Stevens will oppose State Senator Mallory McMorrow and former gubernatorial candidate and public health official Abdul in the Democratic primary. On the Republican side, former U.S. Rep. Mike Rogers is trying again after losing to Democrat Lisa Slotkin in the state's 2024 U.S. Senate race by just 19,000 votes. Stevens will seek to defend her tenure in Congress in the Democratic primary as McMorrow and El-Sayed establish themselves as outsiders. McMorrow is known nationally for her viral moments, and El-Sayed has the backing of Senator Bernie Sanders. Before Congress, Stevens served as the U.S. Treasury's Auto Task Force following the 2008 financial crisis as President Barack Obama's administration bailed out General Motors and Chrysler. She said Trump's taxes on imports are creating another crisis for Michigan's economy, which rides or stalls based on the auto industry's condition. People are very much at a boiling point around the uncertainty of tariffs, she said. Stevens has been an ardent voice for Michigan against Trump's tariffs, particularly those leveraged against Canada. She said they are disruptive to the auto industry and are having a dizzying effect on companies of all sizes, whose leaders cannot make plans as Trump repeatedly changes positions. However, Stevens is among the Democrats who have sought to clarify they are not inherently anti-tariff. Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer recently gave a speech in Washington calling for tariffs to be used like a, quote, scalpel. Sean Fain, president of the nation's top auto worker union based in Michigan, endorsed Trump's auto tariffs as leverage aimed at bringing back domestic manufacturing jobs. Stevens, who sits on the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, said she too would support tariffs that are strategically designed to make America competitive with China's manufacturing, but said Trump's approach is too chaotic to be effective. What I do not support are shoot-by-the-hip erratic tariffs that give us no rules of the road or path to understand how we can succeed, Stevens said. Stevens sailed to victory in her last election representing Oakland County, a key voting bloc in the battleground state. After flipping what had been a reliably Republican seat in 2018 and narrowly defeating her opponent in 2020, she cruised to re-election in 2022 and 2024 after her district was redrawn and became more favorable to Democrats. And just to show you which district it's referring to, she represents District Michigan 11, which she won by about 18.6% in 2024. Back in 2022, she won it by 22.6%. And then when it was redrawn, or before it was redrawn in 2020, she won it by 2.4% in a very close race. 2018, she won it by 6.7%. So I just want to give you a brief look at that real quick. So as for the 2026 United States Senate election in Michigan, as the article mentioned, we're starting to get a slowly competitive Democratic primary going here. Abdul El-Sayed recently announced he's running, as well as Mallory McMorrow, and now Haley Stevens makes her the third Democrat to enter this Democratic primary. Three other potential Democrats, Sarah Anthony, Dana Nessel, and Joe Tate, all of which have mentioned they are interested or publicly expressed interest in running for the Senate seat in Michigan. Dana Nessel is the Michigan Attorney General, Sarah Anthony is state senator, Joe Tate a state rep. It's also worth noting Syed is a former Wayne County health director, Mallory McMorrow is a state senator, Haley Stevens is the only U.S. representative to currently be in this race. Other potential candidates include Andy Levin, a former U.S. rep from the state of Michigan, Matt Sarr, president of Michigan's Professional Firefighter Union, and Representative Rashida Tlaib, U.S. rep from Michigan's 12th District. There has been some Democrats who have declined running for this race. Many of the U.S. reps in Michigan have declined to not run for this race. We also have Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Pete Buttigieg also ruling out runs. As for the endorsements, only Abdul Sayed has gotten any endorsements so far, and they've come from Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, and Ruwa Roman. On the hypothetical polling side, the only poll that was taken included both Buttigieg and Whitmer before they announced they would not be running, so really there's not any polling done on this race as of now. On the Republican side of things, the Republican Mike Rogers, who ran in 2024, as the article mentioned, is running again. He declared a few weeks ago. I did a video on that if you want more information about him as well. If you want to watch that one, you can. He's running again. Also, there is Republican Tudor Dixon, Bill Huizenga, and Lorenzo Sewell, all three of which have publicly expressed interest in potentially running for this Senate seat as well. The Republicans have a wide list of potential candidates from Brian Cayley, Jonathan Lindsley, Ronna McDaniel, Peter Maher, John Molinar, Eric Nesbitt, Sandy Pensler, Brian Posmus, Bill Schwett, Nikki Snyder, and John Tuttle are all potential Republican candidates. Right now, until something changes, though, I would expect, seeing as he was just the Republican nominee in 2024, I do expect Mike Rogers to be the likely Republican nominee for right now for 2026. He also has the endorsement of Tim Scott, John Thune already. These two are the leading Senate Majority Leader Republican in the U.S. Senate, and Tim Scott's the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, which is the branch that's in charge of trying to get more Republicans elected to the U.S. Senate. So Tim Scott views Mike Rogers as the strongest Republican to try and win in 2026. Also, it's worth noting, Rogers has currently raised over $431,000 and has about $523,000 cash on hand as of March 31st, according to the Federal Elections Commission. As for some predictions from some political websites, Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Sabato Crystal Ball all have it listed as either a toss-up or a battleground, whereas Race to the White House has it listed as tilt Democrat. Hypothetical polling does show some hypothetical matchups, some of which are still possible, some of which are not. Dana Nessel versus Mike Rogers was a one-point race with Nessel leading. Nessel and Dixon is tied. Buttigieg is not going to happen, neither is Whitmer, so we can't really do those. Haley Stevens versus Mike Rogers was included. Rogers was leading over her by 6 points with 24% still undecided, probably a lack of name recognition in that situation. So that's where things stand on the polling front and kind of the shape of the race for Michigan in 2026 right now. As for the election history of Michigan, make no mistake, Michigan's one of the closest states in the United States. It just voted for Donald Trump by 1.4% in 2024 over Kamala Harris in a very, very close race and a very, very competitive election. We saw some very close results in some counties like Eaton, Saginaw, Muskegon, and we also saw some close ones up here in Grand Traverse as well. We also saw Trump improve in some numbers like in Macomb County, and Trump also made some margins up in Genesee County, Muskegon County, and Berrien County as well. We can look back at 2020 when Joe Biden narrowly won the state. You can see a lot more lighter blue areas like Saginaw and Muskegon and Eaton and see the margins there. So Michigan's one of the closest states in the United States. 2020, Biden won the state by 2.8. Trump was the first Republican to win it in a very long time in 2016 when he won it by just 0.22% of the vote. On the Senate side of things, 2024, the Senate race was even closer, where Democrat Lisa Slotkin won by just 0.34%. As the article mentioned, approximately 19,000 votes separating Slotkin and Rogers from winning this race. The only difference here is that in this race, Rogers only got 48.3% on the vote. That's the same ballot when Donald Trump got 49.73% of the vote. So by percentage, Rogers ran approximately 1.4% behind what Trump was doing, which kind of feeds into an overall problem for some Republicans, which is when Trump is not at the top of the ticket, Republican turnout doesn't seem to be as enthusiastic, and a lot of voters on the Republican side now only show up for when Donald Trump is on the ballot. If that happens again in 2026, which it definitely could, this would likely be a worrying sign for Mike Rogers, as he was not able to win when Trump was helping him at the top of the ticket. I'm not sure he'll be able to win without Trump at the top of the ticket in 2026 if that problem were to persist. But that's still a problem for 2026 later down the road. Back in 2020, Gary Peters won a very close race over John James by 1.7%. This was the last time Peters was up for re-election, and it ended up being a lot closer than initially expected. 2018, Debbie Stabenow defeated then John James, the candidate, as well by 6.5% in another potentially close race that ended up being 6.5% in a very big Democratic night. The overall map went to the Democrats by about 20 points across all the Senate race votes added up, so Michigan actually ended up being a little bit more Republican than probably expected for that midterm of a night. As for things go for the 2026 Senate race in Michigan right now, I have Democrats favored in about 45 Senate seats, Republicans favored currently in 51, with 4 Senate seats I'm listing as battlegrounds at this time. I also recently shifted New Hampshire, to lean Democrat for now, kind of waiting for more things to develop in that race with Chris Pappas and potentially Scott Brown before I shift it to either likely Democrat or back to toss-up, so I'm leaving it lean Democrat for now. As for the state of Michigan, I think right now the race starts out for me as lean Democrat, which means I have the Democrats winning it by more than 1 point, but under 5 points. I think a big reasoning for this is, as I mentioned, Democrats seem to do very well in off-year elections when President Trump is not at the top of the ticket. Republicans don't seem to get out as many of their voters to turn out in these elections, especially in a state like Michigan. In 2020 and 2024, both close Senate races, Trump is at the top of the ticket. The last time there was not Trump at the top of the ticket in 2022, the governor's map was very good for the Democrats. In 2018, the Senate was very good for the Democrats as well. So I think it's going to be a troubling sign that continues for Republicans when Trump is not leading the tickets. Republicans don't do as well down ballot in the midterm elections. So I would have the Senate race going as lean Democrat right now. I'm honestly not sure if it's going to be Abdul, Mallory, McMorrow, or Haley Stevens being the Democratic nominee yet in the state of Michigan. I do think Mike Rogers will be the Republican nominee, but I'm not too sure who the Democratic nominee is going to be yet. That's going to take some time before that situation plays itself out. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Make sure to leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this news, about this Senate race. Who do you think will win the Democratic primary and all that? Make sure to leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Again, make sure to also click subscribe as I post at least 2 new videos every single day you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.